Why do we dip the bread into salt when we make hamotzi?
The original reason for dipping the bread in salt is based on the fact that back in olden days they didn't used to put any salt in the bread. The bread was quite pale, had hardly any taste to it. It was just flour, water, sometimes some yeast, but they didn't used to put salt in it. And the minig used to be that you would make the bracha Hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Then, in order to have hana, in order to have pleasure or extra pleasure from the bread, you would dip it in salt. That way, you made the bracha, you thanked Hashem for creating the bread, and then you had the ultimate pleasure that you're able to have with it, not just a taste of the bread, but also with a little bit of salt that gave it some taste. That was the original reason. Based on that reason, the minig is that we don't dip the matzah in salt, because by the matzah on Pesach, you want to show that the only reason that you're eating it is not to have pleasure. Mitzvahs lav lehenes nitnu, they weren't given for pleasure. You do it just to say mitzvah. That's why the matzah, the minig is we don't dip it. Back to the same original reason that the reason they would dip it was to give it an extra good taste before you make the bracha birkas hanenin hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Nevertheless, there are a few other reasons besides this reason. Reason number one, it says in Sefer Vayikra, Al kol korbancha takriv melach. Every one of the korbanos should always be offered together with salt. The Gemara says, Maseches Chagigot Daf Yudalid, that now that we don't have a mizbe'ach in order to bring our offerings, a person's table is a mizbe'ach. Just like when you had the altar, you had the mizbe'ach, you would bring a physical element, you bring a carbon, and you would upgrade it and make it into spirituality. You would burn it and make it into ruchnis, into spirituality. That's why, the same way, we take today physical food, we eat it, and with the spirit, with the energy, with the kayach that we get from the food, we're able to serve and worship Hashem. That's why the Gemara makes this comparison between a person eating on his table, comparing it to the mizbe'ach. Just like by the mizbe'ach, every offering had to be given together with salt. That's the same way. The same reason is whenever we eat bread, we also do it, we eat it together with salt. A second reason is, we know that there's nothing more temporary than bread. Bread, if it's not fresh, it's already not as tasty. You eat bread the next day or a few days down the line, it's already not tasty. Nevertheless, the salt is something that's an everlasting mineral. It could go for many, many, many years. When somebody eats the bread, by him dipping it in the salt, he shows, yes, even though the physical bread is limited, but if I do it with the right spirit, I do it with the right kavanah, I do it with the right intentions, I could upgrade this bread into an everlasting thing, into an everlasting energy of serving Hashem. That's why we take the bread, which is a very limited physical food, put it with the salt, and unite it. The third reason is brought down in Kisvei Harizal, and the Rebbe brings it in length in the end of Chelik Lametes in Likutei Siches, by the letters Parshas Eikev. The Rebbe explains, it brings it from Kisvei Harizal, that the idea of dipping the bread, lechem, and melach is the same letters, the same gematria, and by dipping it 3 times in salt, it's hamtokas adining, it's sweetening up the gvuras, the dinim, and as the Rebbe explains there in length. What happens if somebody doesn't have salt? If you don't have salt, you could dip it in something that has salt in it. It could be a salad or something on the table that has salt in it. And just as an interesting thing, on Yud Beis Sivan Tov Shinun Aleph, the Rebbe came down to a surprise farbrengen. Nobody was expecting it. They brought some chalas to the Rebbe. This was like the last, nobody really knew about it. And the Rebbe made hamotzi on 2 chalas. And being that there was no salt, nobody was planning anything, the Rebbe dipped the challah, the piece of challah, into the actual challah, knowing that this challah had some salt in it. So it wasn't just dipping it in salt or dipping it in something that has salt. Even challah that has salt in it, you could dip the piece of challah in the other part of the challah, considering that that part of challah has salt. So that way you could do a kol korbancha takriv melach. That way you could upgrade the bread to everlasting thing with the right kavanas, and hamtokas adinim, as is explained in length in Likutei Sichos and many other sources in the name of the Arizal.